Now, police officer Sizwe Zungu will be cross-examined in the Senzo Meiywa murder trial today. He placed the accused at a Vosloorus hostel on the night of the murder. Now, the defense is trying to poke holes in his testimony, calling it a fabrication. eNCA's Manqoba Mchunu is watching proceedings and, of course, joins me now just to give us an update about the latest regarding this case. Manqoba, if you can hear me now, I know we had a little bit of a technical failure earlier, but of course, Zungu has admitted, testifying throughout his testimony that he has withheld some crucial information.
Well, certainly, Peran. In fact, that came out through the cross-examination of Constable Sizwe Zungu. As you recall, that he gave damning evidence before the court, basically linking these accused to the murder of Senzo Meiywa, placing all the 5 accused in a hostel at Vosloorus on the night that Senzo Meiywa was killed. And so, effectively telling this court that all of 5 of them had known each other and that they were linked to each other in some way or the other, and that they had attended that particular gathering that had happened at that particular hostel. But yesterday, of course, the defense trying to poke holes in his testimony and also just pointing out some of the inconsistencies between his evidence in court as well as some of the statements that he had deposed to police. And one of the issues is around what he saw on that evening around 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, when he says 3 of the accused had walked into the hostel. They'd come back looking panicked and they were looking scared at that time. And he failed to mention this, though, in his statement to police, which is one of the issues that he was questioned about. But also, there were a lot of questions about his conduct as a police officer and why he had failed as a police officer to act at that particular time, given the information that he claims he had at that particular point. And the defense really saying that, he had failed as far as carrying out his duties, his legal duties is concerned, because he had failed to report his suspicions to police or his seniors at the time. It took him 5 years, the defense says, for him to actually be able to tell his seniors about what his suspicions were as far as Senzo Meiywa's murder is concerned. And also the lawyer for defense, or rather the lawyer for accused number 5, Advocate Zandile Mshololo, even alluding to the fact that there was fabrication as far as the story of the hostel is concerned. Accused number 5 saying that he was never there, he was at work on that particular day. So all the 5 accused essentially are denying that they were in Vosloorus on that day and that there was a gathering that had taken place on that day. But just to get more analysis on this, I'm now joined by Elton Hart, who's a legal expert. Elton, thank you very much for your time. A very good morning to you. And let's start here, firstly, by looking at the strength of that cross-examination from the defense. Were they able to cast any doubt or poke holes in what Sizwe Zungu had said?
Yes, indeed, Manqoba. And for me, it's like it speaks to the credibility of Sizwe Zungu that's currently on the stand, because he was sort of made aware by the court that he has the right not to self-incriminate himself, But the evidence that he was going to give was not going to expose him to criminal charges. So for me, the court, in forewarning them, actually now allowed him to be dishonest with the court, because now when a question becomes too difficult for him, he says, I don't want to even answer the question. Because when the defense team or the legal representative for accused number 4 asked him, in which year was Sinakos killed, he gave an explanation of nearly 2 minutes about respecting the dead, and just to say it was in 2014, it wasn't 2013. So he became an evasive witness. And when the court explained that sections to him in terms of section 203 of the CPA, to say a witness may not give evidence that would expose him to criminal proceedings, the state, on the other hand, could have employed the arsenal, what they have in their arsenal, section 204, to say, give frank, honest answers about really what happened, and we will indemnify. The state did not use. So there's also underhanded tactic by the state. And I, for once, looked at this witness, and if the court finds this witness to be a credible witness, I would be flabbergasted. I would not understand what is currently happening in our court system, because this witness, when he chooses to remember certain things that incriminate the 5 accused. But when it comes to things that maybe cast doubt on what he's saying, then he says, I don't want to answer. And the court can then say, but sir, in terms of section 204, or they can even ask the prosecutor, listen here, 204, you can indemnify this person, be it formal or informally. That section is there, but they don't do it. This witness can then now just answer what he thinks is necessary. And then for me, that speaks to what Advocate Mshololo put to him very clearly, that he never had that information in 2014 when he saw the images that was depicted in the newspaper of these 5 persons that they were at the hostel. That never happened. Hence, he could not concoct the story. And that then supports that notion of, for me, what Advocate Zandile Mshololo is putting to him to say that it was a fabrication. You only sort of concocted the story in 2018, 2019, when you now had conversations, after you had conversations with General Lishabani and then with Brigadier Geninda. That, for me, this witness, his credibility is out by the door.
And Elton, just talking about what we saw in court, of course, the tensions that we're seeing between the judge as well as some of the defense lawyers. I mean, yesterday as well, we saw Judge Racha Mokgoatleng having to remind those defense attorneys that, in fact, he was not only just watching proceedings and a referee in this particular court, but also he could partake and be active in what was happening in court. What do you make of what happened and what Judge Racha Mokgoatleng had to say?
Now, if one looks at it, and he was quoting a Supreme Court judgment. Now, he was reading to the defense team what paragraph 3 of that judgment says. But if you do yourself a favor, you can read what paragraph 4 of that very same judgment say, to say that, yes, a judge may enter the arena in managing the trial, but there's a fine line between managing a trial and actually entering the arena. So one needs to look at, is his behavior, does it come into entering into the arena where he's actually actively stopping the defense from actually executing their defense and putting cross-examination properly to the person? Or is he just saying to them, okay, I think you've asked that question, I don't think the question is relevant, either rephrase, or if rephrase is still not fine, then he says, okay, I'm making a ruling, that's allowed. But to actually now, at some stages, and one could see that he would, at some stages, when he explained previously how you actually retrieve the serial number that was filed off, and he sort of gave an explanation to, and we all know that he's not supposed to do that. It's for the state to put that to the witnesses, or to actually ask the witnesses to explain it. He, as a judicial officer, just takes notice of what they, and he, of his previous experience, he should know if they explain, to say, but sir, my explanation of does this mean that? But to actually go and explain and sometimes get into the defense team to say, but they can, and then he gets angry when the defense team sort of raises their views on certain things. And you can see he's sitting, when the defense is there, he looks annoyed when they do their cross-examination. For me, as much as I respect the decorum of court, I respect a person for his position that they hold, but at sometimes he needs to also realize that the people standing on the other side of the podium are also legally trained, and they also deserve respect in the court. There's ways and means that you actually need to say to them, I disagree with you, I think it's irrelevant, can you move on? I make a ruling that you may not ask that question. Then it should be fine.
Okay, and just finally, Elton, do you think that the state needs to collaborate the evidence of Constable Sizwe Zungu? Do you foresee them being forced to call somebody who's going to collaborate basically what Sizwe Zungu has said to this court? Somebody perhaps was also there at that hostel.
No, they have to call somebody, because now currently this is a surprise witness that jumped out, that was not on the witness list, to come and testify and give a testimony that there was an event on 26 October 2014 that happened, and all five accused was there. That's a single witness. The court needs to err on the side of safety, because all five accused say there was no such an event. They don't know this man. So they need to bring somebody that can actually, and prove. And all the evidence that was gathered on the photos, they need to get, and I would urge the defense team to get photos that has date stamps to prove these photos were taken on that date that Zungu alleges it happened. because they need to really come with evidence to say, but yes, Zungu said that all good and well, nice testimony that he gave, but it was a fabrication, because here's evidence that says this photos was taken in 2012, 2013, or even 2015, after it wasn't taken on that day that he alleges these photos were taken. And also the person that he says it's him in the photos, that they just bring that person, the defense, now to say, but it's not you, that's me. So the state will need to bring somebody else to come and back up Zungu, because yeah, it's only his story. And then on the backdrop of sitting 4 or 5 years with the story to first work it out nicely, calculate how you're going to spin the story, and now coming forth with that nice story that you were there. I would not trust this guy. He's not reliable, he's not credible, especially because he's a police officer. And even when he went on to say he felt like even somebody threatening your life, then you don't go and open a case as a police officer. No. For me, that already, the alarm bells is ringing.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your analysis. That was Elton Hart, just analyzing things for us this morning and giving us perspective as far as what to expect in court. We do appreciate you, Elton, for your time. While we're expecting those proceedings to resume at 10 o'clock this morning, with cross-examination continuing this morning.
Thank you so much. That was eNCA reporter Manqoba Mchunu at the High Court in Pretoria. Of course, the Senzo Meiywa murder trial continuing today.